Welcome to the Abundance Hack Podcast, where we want to inspire you to push past your blocks, limiting beliefs, and comfort zone to live a confident, happy, and fulfilling life. I am your host, Niajae, influencer, motivational speaker, and boss babe. Every time you hit subscribe or leave a 5-star rating, I do my happy dance. Hey guys, it's Niajae. Welcome to Abundance Hack Podcast. Today I have Amy Powell. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I just want to tell you guys, Amy and I go way back. She actually currently owns an aerial studio, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I had my aerial studio, she was in town and stopped by, and she's an amazing aerialist, like very intricate, detailed moves. So we go way back, but I had to have her on the show for a really special topic. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Amy Powell. I definitely do aerials. I also do some other cool projects online that we can maybe talk about. But I also am just somebody that I guess marches to the beat of my own drum. And I think I have 2 great kids, one of which I had as a single woman. So I think that's what we are going to talk about today.
Yes. So before we get into the topic, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
Abundance is so an inner word to me. I mean, I know that like it's sort of an outward word to a lot of people, like having all this stuff and these things, but it's so an inner word. Like when I think of abundance, it's like really just feeling full inside of me and feeling aligned inside of me and like having all my resources at hand and like just feeling like super centered and like I got everything, all my tools like kind of in hand and ready to use when needed, something like that.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Awesome. Okay, so what we are talking about today is having a child on your own. And this was something that I think it really touches home for me. And I just had this moment where I said, I have to have this on my show. And so just ironic how everything happened and fell into place. But one of the biggest things for me is I've dedicated a lot of my time towards business. And so I haven't spent a lot of time in relationships, and society places these social norms and pressures on you that if you want kids, you have to have it by a certain time, or you have to choose between kids and a business. So this is a topic that's really, really important to me. And I've considered having a kid on my own because I do want kids. And I also don't want to force myself into a relationship that's not right for me because I want to have kids. And so I have so much to say about it, but I want you to tell your story. So sure. What was that first moment that you decided this is what I'm going to do?
Oh, wow. So I don't know if there was like a moment, because it was a really long process, because it was almost like kind of flushing out all the demons that existed alongside it, because I have always loved kids. I had a child and she's now 14 and she's 10 years apart from my son. And so I already had, at that time, maybe like an 8 or a 9-year-old when the idea started to brew. And, I was like, I really didn't just think I was going to have her. I want a sibling for her. I had siblings for myself, and that was a really important thing to me. And I wanted another child. I wasn't done being a mom. I had, done it once, but like really wanted to do it and feel how that is with another personality. So, I mean, there was all kinds of things, but it was like, I know this is something I want to do. And I really would have thought I would have done it already. And it's just not here. I mean, I don't have a partner. I would have thought, there was sadness with that. But also just like, okay, then what am I going to do about it? Could I do this by myself? And then, that idea was quick to come, like that wasn't like hard to find, in my mind. I was like, yeah, I could just do it by myself. But it was hard to decide like, I'm really going to do it, because it felt like, okay, if I do this, man, I'm just going to be like tainting myself with like a stain forever, in the sense that I'm going to be weird. And will I ever, am I like energetically giving up on finding a partner? And will this like stop that process? Literally like in the physical realm of things, because it's going to be too weird, or just like in the energy realm of things, because I've like shut that part of me down that's looking and that's like hopeful and whatever. So it took me a little bit. But I started thinking of it when she was 8 or 9. And then we started like, you know what, I'm just going to do this. Like, and so I started asking some people that I knew, and like trying to make it more real, and seeing like, okay, would you be interested in doing this? And I got some no's and I got some yeses, and I didn't have a ton of people to ask, but I had some. And that's what started making it real, was kind of getting some yeses and thinking like, okay, all right, I think we could do this. I think I will do this. Also kind of realizing that like on both outcomes, I mean, even if this does destroy my chances of ever being with someone, I think if I really was put down to it, like, no partner, or you're not going to be able to have a kid, I kind of thought, I think I'm going to go with that. And I felt like at least I'll be doing what I wanted to be doing in the meantime. Like, I'm not guaranteed the other side. I'm not guaranteed to ever find a partner. Why don't I do the things that I know I want to do? And wouldn't that open me up to finding a partner more? Like to be really doing all the things I want to do, and like kind of living my full life that way. So it's kind of how that decision went. Although it was like layers and layers. And there was the practical side too. I had to start looking into practical stuff too. And there was a lot of that in the decision too.
I would think like maybe finances is like one of the practical decisions. Like a woman would think like, okay, now I'm bringing a child into the world and I have to fully support this child on my own. So did that factor into your decision? Because it's something that I thought about, like, okay, I don't have 2 incomes, I have 1. So I want to be able to hire help and, have possibly a nanny if I did it on my own. Was that a thought that crossed your mind?
It was, for sure. Maybe not as much for me as it would be for someone who's never had a child, because see, when you've never had one, that's a really big mental leap, and you don't know how it'll be, and you don't know how your patterns will be as a mom either, because different moms do it different ways. And so, sometimes it's childcare, and sometimes, it's some other combination. And so I did have, I had the benefit of having had another child, and I was kind of, fate forced me into that one. And so I had already gone through all that, like, whoa, how does this work? How will I do this? And so I already had a sense of what kind of money and finances, and I like to kind of think of, our situation, we do it a little bit more frugally. So maybe I didn't have as giant of a hurdle, like, oh, wow, and I need to like beef up my income this much. So, and that could be a different thing we talk about, but yeah, we just, our lifestyle kind of, I homeschool my kids, and there is a lot of ways that they can be with me when I work. So I don't have as huge of a need for all of that. So those are just like, they turn out great for me, or they're creative. I don't know if I created them, or if like, that's just kind of what I'm thankful for my life, that is already in my life. But, so yes, but finances was a thing. I mean, all of these things are important to sort of figure out. But that one I knew a little bit more about, it's like, I already kind of knew what it was like with my daughter, and I figured it wouldn't be too terribly much different with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what about just knowing that they wouldn't have a normal dad around? So I grew up without a dad. So I guess part of my hang up was, well, I want to give my child an opportunity to grow up with a dad.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I know that I missed, but I think I turned out fine. So I guess like it's not.
Well, I mean,
I don't know, that's like a very, I feel like, sensitive topic. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's super sensitive, because, I don't want to be like, dudes don't matter, because then I'm just like insulting men, and I do think that they matter. But I also, at the very same time, don't think that it's devastation in quite the way that we've painted it if a child doesn't have a father. Now, it is devastation if a child doesn't have multiple adult resources. You know, if they don't have family members, adults, I mean, they can't, it is possible. It is great enough that they would just have one loving, amazing mother. That is great. But then we have seen plenty of studies and things to the contrary, where it's like, you know, if they don't have a father in the home, it puts them at risk for X, Y, and Z. And, you know, maybe, you know, that is true, but it might not be about a father exactly, especially like biological, or, you know, it doesn't necessarily, it's about having multiple adult resources, like having those different pillars of strength, having those different examples, like not just one example of adult, but multiple examples of adult. And, you know, I felt like that was the thing that I wanted to focus on, was like, I know they need other adults in their lives. I know they need other examples. I know they need other people's styles of relating to like play with. And, you know, they need those people to be strong, intimate adults too, not just like passing in and out of their lives, like Uncle so-and-so that comes around every, you know, 6 months or whatever, but like, you know, strong and regular, intimate, like we know each other closely, we laugh together, tickle fight on the floor type of adults in their life. That's what that's like. It's like more about having other adults around in a home sort of type of way. They even if they don't live in your home, it's like, you know, we all feel like home together, and we can operate as though we're home together. And that's what I feel like that research meant to me. You know, when I look at stuff about dads being important, it has to do with that other person, that other adult figure. And so I didn't, to me, have to be a dad, a biological person that way. And of course it would be beautiful, because then there would also be that relationship between parents that it could be modeling after and stuff, in theory, right? But sometimes it doesn't even go that way. I mean, think about most of the relationships and families and how they go, and like the relationships aren't a great model for the kids and whatever. But in the ideal, sure. But that just wasn't what I was working with. Just like in a lot of families, even that have a 2-parent household, they're not working with those ideals either, because they don't have an ideal relationship that they're modeling to their kids either. So I just was like, all right, you know, it'll be less about the dad. But there are weirdnesses, like, well, how am I going to tell them about it? And what am I going to be ready for their questions? And like, what questions would they ask me? What are the most blunt, you know, questions that a kid would throw at me? And like, do I have a way to answer that? And I am a very like straight talker, and like, I do really talk openly with my kids about all kinds of stuff. And so again, I didn't feel super intimidated by that, because I thought, okay, we'll just talk about it. I did worry a little that like, you know, will they feel rejected the way that like, you know, a child wonders why they don't have this, or this person didn't stay around. And it wasn't, again, I felt like it was something that we could easily handle, because it was almost like I could paint it like a gift, you know, like this person was so nice enough or kind enough to like, let me have you. They knew me well enough, and they felt like I was a good enough mom or candidate for momhood, that they, you know, were willing to give this gift. And that gets into some of the practicals too, because you can have all kinds of arrangements with your sperm donor. And so also in my case, I knew that it was going to be an open kind of arrangement, and we would do the see this person, know this person when my kid wants to, kind of thing. And so, you know, I also felt like it was going to be approachable too.
Yeah. So you have I'm taking it back just a little bit before I address what you just said, but you have a support system. So you have other adults around. So your child has that, or your children has that family environment.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would love to be like, yes, I do. And it's just, you know, I made sure that like my concept was in place, and that the bare minimums were in place. Now, I have as many people as I'd like at the current moment? Like, no. Do I do do I make sure that we do, you know, I will ask my family and friends, like, you know, let's do big vacations together at the beach, and you know, like, so that they get to stay 2 weeks in a place, you know. So I do what I can with what I have. And yes, I mean, the answer is yes, there are enough people there that I feel like, you know, my son in particular, who's young and who was the one that, you know, was made with just me and some other tools. But anyway, he, you know, he has interactions with other male figures. You know, he's got an uncle that he sees like kind of regularly, and but I use it almost as a directive, you know, like a directive for what we're going for more of too, you know. So and I'm always like deepening and cultivating those relationships more, and then just sort of asking family and friends, you know, and we kind of have it in the works of like, and what could be better too, you know. I mean, maybe I move one day, or we move, you know, and a friend of mine and I talk about moving into a house together sometimes. So, you know, it's in the works. It's not all set in place right now, but it's always kind of a project and a directive that's like a point of focus. So.
Yeah. So the process, the actual process, you knew the donor, and I know that there's options where you can go to like a sperm bank and like choose, but you specifically knew the donor. So I guess that as far as arrangements go, there's so many different types of ways that can be set up basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. And, you know, I mean, I can say what I know from my research. Of course, I'm not like the end resource. You should definitely like research it on your own too. But also I'll say, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this needs to be put out there too. So many people have asked me about this. I mean, I guess like once I was gutsy enough to just be like, I'm doing this, you know, and like I speak about it openly. And, but like so many people have spoken with me about it. So many people do it, or so many people are curious about it. And also so many people, you know, I'm thinking of one friend in particular, who, you know, was like, oh, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, are you kidding? Should even ask some of my friends, like, no, you'll say yes, and she really thinks so. And she asked, and actually, you know, some really close friends of hers that are a couple said yes, you know. And she was like, wow, I just like never thought they would do this for me, or like, you know, didn't even think that was an option, because he's partnered off, you know. She thinks she's asking her single guy friends, but she ended up asking. And so anyway, asking friends may seem pretty intimidating, but I've known a lot of people to find surprising results. And you don't have to do it. You know, if you're just like, heck no, I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm just going to go about it with the catalog and like keep it private to myself. Like, those are your options. Those are the things that you get to pick. And so, yeah, you can do it that way. You know, I wanted like a little bit less of the intervention stuff. I kind of knew that I was fertile enough to do it because I had had a kid before, or at least that's the way I felt about it. And so I didn't need like all of the giant fertility program that some of the donation centers offer you. I mean, of course, they're a business, and so they want to guarantee you, you know, for the large investment that you're making, that you are going to have success. And so they do the full gamut of, you know, fertility meds and everything too. And that makes sense. That makes sense if you're really wanting to guarantee that's going to happen. I wanted a little bit of a lower budget kind of thing, which you can do. You can arrange, you know, you think creatively. That's all I can say. Like, everybody kind of lets something be that like big road stopper where they're like, I don't have like that, you know, all this money to do. And there you can be creative. I promise. Like, it actually, you know, you can make it work your way. And yeah, I didn't want all of the fertility things. I was willing to use them if I needed them, but I wanted to try, you know, without all of that. And then, you know, and that did work for me. So.
Yeah. And so I would imagine if you did go through the fertility and stuff like that, it would be pretty pricey. So that's probably one thing that would deter some women, because you said it was about how much on an average? Because I'm sure it changes from facility, but on the average.
Yeah, right. You know, I looked up some that were like 18,000. I looked up some that were in the upper 20s. And that though is a whole thing. I mean, that's like, you know, I think most of those were start to finish. It was like, and you go until you're good. And so that is what I saw. And that, you know, that was about 4 years ago. So, you know, maybe a little different now, but yeah, again, just something to like look at and look into and see how you can make it work.
So I know two people that, well, like one lesbian couple and one other girl that they basically used a turkey baster I don't know if I should say that, but
yeah, well, the thing is, we can talk about it. It's not illegal to talk about, but in some states it's illegal. And other states it's not, you know, and I'm with you. I know personal people, like people that I know personally, that has worked fine, and they didn't use a turkey baster per se. The method that they used was like, you know, some syringe. Yeah, syringe and those like a diaphragm or a moon cup, you know, those right, because you're gonna hold it in. You know, so
I had no idea.
Right, these things, you know, get, like I said, think creatively. We got these things to hold other things out, but we can also use it and flip it and hold it in, you know. So that was something that they did. It is like I said, I think illegal for sure in some states. I know in mine it is. So that was you know, if you live in a state, look it up and see, and you know, if it's illegal. But it's just illegal to, you know, do something like that that's apparently, you know, a medical procedure. Like you can't do medical procedures at home, and that's considered a medical procedure if it's not done with the normal, natural sexual interaction. So
people often say motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. Zig Ziglar. Living a fulfilling and happy life takes conscious effort. Join Abundance Hack Members Club to receive motivational videos, affirmation recordings, and guided meditations for you to maintain a positive mindset and high vibrations. Head over to abundancehack.com for more information. Now back to the show. I want to get into more of the emotional, maybe benefits and possibly drawbacks. So in my head, when I thought about it, and I'm a really visual person, maybe a little dramatic, but I just saw me like having like this huge belly and like I can't change my socks or put on my shoes and not having anyone there, and like just like breakdowning and crying because like I didn't have that support system. Because when you're pregnant, you're emotional and you may be a little more needy, like someone to bring you like salt and vinegar chips and ice cream, you know. So like
well, let me tell you. Well, I mean, this is the thing, is I can guarantee you 100%. And like sometimes, so I'm like a scenarios. You're like a visual person, and I'm a scenarios person. Like I weigh it all out. And the first thing that comes to my mind is I can guarantee you that even if you had a partner and the ideal scenario, you would still find yourself at least a few times crying out of loneliness and out of that exasperation of like, holy crap, I can't even put on my socks, you know, or whatever. So like those moments are going to happen whether you have a partner or whether you don't. And of course it can be heightened, especially if you let your mind go to, because I'm alone and I'm always alone. And why do I always have to do this alone? And that's okay. Like, you know, sometimes you got to let yourself be in that, because it's just like, you got to wash that out, because it's, you know, it's a thing that we single women can feel, but women who are coupled feel it too.
That's true.
You know, if they really do. And gosh, you know, again, this is a whole nother topic and we could spend hours on this too. But if I were going to advise any woman, even especially a woman with a partner, there are ways that I feel like, you know, doing this by myself was easier, ways that it was, and ways that it wasn't. And ways that there was relief in it, and knowing that it's like me, and I've got to figure this out, and ways that of course that's huge. And then there's a lot of weight on your back in that way too. So it goes both ways. But the advice I would give to any woman that's about to have a child or considering have a child, especially if she has a partner, is, you know, I don't want to be negative about her partner, but like think that through, talk to your partner, because I cannot. And I mean, I feel like if we had this panel of like married women in here right now, even women that are currently happily married, and we know, like, it would be a joke, a funny joke that we could all relate on and laugh on. Like, how different was your husband than you thought he was going to be with this baby, you know? And they would be like cracking up because they're like, so different, you know? I mean, because it is, you set up this life together and you have this coupleness together. And for some crazy reason, we like ask these big questions, you know, like, would you want a boy or a girl? Would you want to raise them this religion or that religion? And then like, we don't think about all this other stuff. Like, you know, whatever, does he listen to a kid, or does he just like write off, like how good is he at dealing with like noise in his ear, you know? Does he just like shut that down? Does he leave? Does he like still look at the child and like talk to them, you know? Just little things like that where it's like, oh, I didn't know. And maybe they don't know because they've never been around kids. A lot of men just haven't been around kids a lot. And some women who were like, he was so great with his nieces and nephews, and like, now that we have this child, you know, he like takes it so much more seriously because he thinks it's like his child, and he's just like so militant or something, you know, like it just changes. It changes in ways that and some of that you can ask about and plan for, and some of it you can't. Some of it you just have to ride that wave like you do in any relationship, and any, you know, just gotta like take it as it comes. And so I guess I'm kind of that scenarios person where I'm like, you know, even in a relationship, like there's so much that you just don't know. You know, you don't know if you're going to have this amazing, like bringing you those chips and ice cream like you're talking about. And like, it might not even feel that way. Like maybe he does bring you the chips and ice cream, but it doesn't feel like that support. It's just like, here's your ice cream, shut up. You know, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like, and that may not even be the thing. You know, you may imagine that that's the thing that you need, but maybe it's not. Maybe when you're pregnant, you don't actually need service, like the love languages, like the acts of service. And
that's totally my love language though.
But you don't, I mean, things change. I mean, you know, just even temporarily things change. I don't mean like your whole person has to change, but you know, all of a sudden you might just be feeling like you need those words of appreciation, like so much more. And he might like have it on lockdown with bringing you the gifts, and like, cause that's y'all's pattern that you set up, but like crap, all of a sudden it changed and you needed something different. So it's just really about you guys and like yourself too. Do I know what I need? Do I know how I've shifted? Do I know how to communicate that? And so having a child by yourself, you know, there's a lot of emotional stuff that goes in there, and you got to work through a lot. And it is about knowing you. I mean, it's like in a way, because it's like crazy rigorous training of like, I got to sort through me in like deep ways that other people might not even ever be pressed to do. And am I going to be okay with this? Am I okay standing up and saying that I do this to or, you know, that I've done this to other people? Am I okay with like their sideways looks, if they're going to have sideways looks? And am I okay with questions? And like, to what, you know, you get offered this opportunity to kind of reach a whole new level of comfort with yourself. And like, am I going to, you know, it's kind of like building up the guts to like leap, you know, it's like, am I going to leap and, you know, feel good about myself just for doing that? Even in the times when you are like, oh my God, this sucks. Like you still kind of have this, like, I'm proud of myself though, because I have leapt, you know, and I'm in the dang air, and I, you know, so you get these things too, these surprise things that you might not be thinking about that like sustain you. You know, being courageous enough to do something like that, man, there's a lot of sustenance there. You know, you really just like, and that feels good. Even when you've got all this other stuff. And yeah, so, I mean, ask me more if there's like more details emotionally, because I feel like there's so much in there, and I'm just not sure how much of it to just like runaway train with, you know. I can talk on it for a long time, but you know, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely want to open up the dialogue for anyone who's listening or watching. If you have any questions, please comment below or email us, whatever the case may be, so we can get your questions answered. We're happy to do a follow-up episode where we can answer specific questions. But I think on an emotional level, so there's something that I discovered at some point where if a woman is like, she has a surprise pregnancy, and if she's disappointed, it releases a certain chemical in her body that can trigger different things in the child. And there's like emotional, mental, sometimes even like physical down, what's the word? Like issues that a child can have later on in life from these negative chemicals being released in the body of a woman who's carrying a child, that she doesn't want the child, she's not happy about it, she's sad, she's depressed. And so I would think that if you go through this process to have a child on your own, you want this child and you love this child, and every cell in your body says like, I want you, I love you, I am taking this leap, as you say, to bring you into this world because that's how bad that I want you. So I would imagine that would release a positive chemical. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I would just think that there would be a special bond there, just because, you know, a child knows if it's wanted or not, you know?
Right. And that was some of the stuff that I would pull from in my mind when I thought about when my kid wants to ask questions, and like explaining that it was a gift. And even though they might feel a little bit like, whoa, that was different, I felt like there was always this other side of the coin that could rebalance things. I mean, as everywhere in the universe, there is like this, you know, but it was like, yeah, because then there's this extra bonus of like, but you were so wanted, you know, so wanted. Like I was jumping through hoops wanted, you know, and then so that can relieve some of that extra, like, oh, I don't have a normal situation like these other people. And normal is so not even defined anymore, you know, really, if we want to take a realistic look at it. I mean, sometimes we get our head in this place where we are still just going by these like normative words that we are thinking, but it's not even the case anymore. So I had to look at that. But, you know, and in terms of this chemicals, you know, and like, yes, absolutely. There is, if anything, I would say it's more like the empowered thing. Like you feel empowered, you feel sure, you feel like you're doing what you wanted to do. And of course you love this baby. And of course it's not just about empowering yourself for some power project. This is like, I wanted to do this, and this is going to involve another person. And I'm on the line here, and I've signed up, and I really want to bring this other person into my life. And so there's definitely empowerment and bonding and all of that, like sureness, determination even, you know, so when you are hitting those moments where it's like, oh God, I'm alone and it's awful, but you know, they're not as bad. See, I went through a pregnancy with a partner too. Now, granted, this is a partner that I'm not with. So obviously the partnership wasn't 100% solid, but it was easier to do it the second time because of that resolution, because it was, and now of course too, because maybe I had done it before, but I'm thinking, you know, really in those moments when it was just like so rough, it was like, I want this though. I really do. And this is what I've, you know, signed up to do. But as a side note about those chemicals though, I just feel like as a mom, I have to say this, don't put yourself through too much pressure on that either, because honestly, even when you decide to do this, and even when you're like, you know, and there's positives to that, but you're also going to hit those times where you're like, oh my God, what did I do? Or just because you're human, and like the flip side of life always comes back around. So you're going to hit those moments. I think, you know, it's more like sustained negative chemicals that would do something like that. You know, you're going to have fleeting moments, and you're just going to have to let them flush through and not worry, you know, like I've definitely known women that have gotten like too worried about like, I got to keep my spirits up. I don't want to be negative or heavy because I don't want it to affect the baby. And I, you know, I just wanted to like relieve some of that by saying like, yeah, you can.
That would probably be me.
I know, but you gotta let I'm the advocate for the other side, where I'm just like, no, just wash it through. Like your best way is cleanse it through, you know, like just cry it out, you know, and like call somebody, call me, you know, and I'll totally be able to commiserate and like, yes, it does. So like there's certain things that, you know, because I had to let myself, even in the aspect of like, sometimes I had to cry and, you know, be like, God, I'm never going to find a partner, am I? Or something like that. Or like, have I given up on that? Or, you know, now I have this baby and there's no way I can date, or I don't feel like a dateable woman right now. Because you don't, you're not supposed to, you know, you're in a totally different state of womanhood. But sometimes that feels weird to feel like I'm not a dateable woman right now. And I want to be though, because I kind of want to still be on the lookout for that other thing that I wanted, you know, so, and you just have to like process them through, like they're there, they're real, we get it, you know.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced with this process?
Let's see. That's an interesting question. I mean, the decision part was really tough. I think, and I don't really know why. I mean, I've mentioned it several times, so it like indicates that that is probably one of the biggest challenges, but sort of feeling like I had to make that judgment call of partnership or baby. And it was stupid that I pitted them against each other, because I totally believe that they both can exist. And I'm dating someone now, so I feel like here, you know, it's, but at that time, it felt like it was like that do or die. Like, if I'm really going to pull the trigger, I have to be ready and have my decision made up for if the worst case scenario hits, where this totally destroys my chances of ever. And it was tough, because it felt like I was having to lay that to rest, lay it to rest that, you know, maybe I won't have a partnership, and that's going to have to be okay with me. And I'm going to have to lay it down. And it's really silly looking back that that's even what I made it into, but I did. And that was like really hard to do, but also huge for me. Like, it made such a good difference. It was like, God, I think this is what every single woman needs to do, is like, you know, because when you move it, you know, I mean, people say it in lots of different ways, but it's like when you're not thinking that that's what's missing in your life, and when you're not making it be the thing that you need to get in order to be able to start life for real or whatever, you know, because I have always been a really independent kind of person. And like I said, march to the beat of my own drum, whatever you want to call it. Yet I would not be able to deny that there wasn't some tiny part of me that would definitely think, well, like, you know, life will be able to 100% get into its place for real when I have a partner, you know. And that was just like putting too much on that. That was me, you know, kind of being, I don't know, just like dependent on it in a weird way that was probably preventing me from having one. Like, that's probably why I was a single lady, you know. That's like probably what the thing was. But then I had to lay it down. It was this, you know, it was like this moment of like, am I going to do this? And so I had to almost like let it die, let that ideal and let all of that kind of die. And that was hard to do, because I felt like grasping for this like thing that had always carried so much hope for me, and that had kind of like kept me going on the, you know, and I was like, oh God, am I like going to let go of the very thing that gives me, you know, like something that I really want, or something that gives me hope, or something that's a part of me. And man, it was a good thing though. I mean, you know,
I actually talk about that in my book that I'm about to release soon, because for a long time I felt like a relationship was like my missing puzzle piece. And so I had to say, no, my life is amazing as is, like without that relationship. And I realized I was putting so much pressure on finding a relationship now because I want to have kids, because everyone's telling me, oh, your biological clock is ticking. So it's the pressure that society puts on you and makes you feel like, well, this is what you should be doing at this age. And so I realized so much of that was like just subconsciously stored in my brain, you know?
And that was another huge part too, that I thought was a positive, and it's turned out to be, but relieving that pressure of like, I want to have a baby, you know, and they make jokes about it, like the biological clock, but you're thinking, I would like to have a baby. And because of that lens, you think you need this other person. And I mean, naturally you do, but at the same time, you know, all right, there are other ways to handle it. You can get creative, and you need another person, but not that long term. So anyway, I knew that was putting too much pressure on the very process of me dating and the very process of me finding a partner. And it was also making partnership seem like too big of a deal, because I was like, oh, just like you, I actually do love my life, and I'm living it just, you know, and not that, you know, partnership isn't something I really like to experience or explore, because I feel like, you know, I would like to. I'm very curious about what that's like, and to be able to explore it as fully as I'd like to. But I got all this extra loaded pressure around partner, because it feels like, and I have to find a partner in order to do the things that I wanted to do. And so part of my, life will really begin if once I be able to get this partner. Part of that was wrapped up in the child part too. It was like, oh, okay, because I'm thinking that I can't start doing some of these things that I really want to do in life without the partner, but that's putting too much pressure on it. And probably really clouding my judgment and picking, even in ways that I'm not aware of,
Yeah.
because I had done all of the soul searching and the thinking, and I was like, yeah, I got my mind right, but it's in subtle ways that you just can't totally tease out, other than being aware of them. It's just like in these subtle ways of like, yeah, it does put a little bit of urgency on it, doesn't it? I mean, even though I think I'm not just like urgently searching for some dude in the most base level way, still, I couldn't deny that there was some urgency on it just because I really did want to have a baby. And I was thinking I needed the partner for that. So it relieved that, took some of the pressure off of that too.
Yeah, totally. So there's two things I want to say. There was a movie that featured J-Lo where she decided to get artificially inseminated, and then she met a guy while she was pregnant. So it's a really interesting story, but that pressure was gone of like, I have to find a partner. I have to find a partner. I have to find a partner. Second thing I want to say to that is I actually met a guy and we were having a conversation about relationships and the age that we're at. And he says that he'll date women and they'll just be ready for like marriage and kids. And he's like, our relationship isn't even that good. It isn't even that like passionate solid, or like, it's not that solid, but because he was stable and he checked all of the boxes, he has a house, he has a car, he has a, good business, like that was enough for a lot of women, even though they didn't share that like connection or that love or that like just that passion between each other. It was just, they're ready because they're ready to settle down. This is the age that they feel they should settle down. And he marked all of the boxes.
Well, and the thing is that even those women might not realize that. They might say like, no, I do feel good about him. But what they feel good about is like, kind of like getting that thing that they wanted or getting the like promise fulfilled, So like the feelings are coming from that place rather than an actual bond with him. And that, that's why those are those subtle things, those like subtle ways that it plays in that you got to really stay aware of. And they can happen to anybody really, but, going at it from the other side, I was like, oh, and these are side benefits. These are added benefits. Like I just relieved all that pressure. And by the way, when you were saying that too, I just wanted to say, my experience post having a baby, and I put it on my, when I was doing online dating, it was on my online profile that he was, I didn't like sit there and tell the whole story and like, like it was cool points, but it was in there. It was like, and I've got a 4-year-old son that was, done through artificial insemination or whatever. And of course, if somebody had a negative reaction, I'm sure I didn't hear from them because they just like went about their business, which is fine. But I had tons of really great reactions, meaning, guys that like immediately, almost like first thing they would bring out is like, wow, I think that's really, like they thought it was really cool that I did that, or that it was like, so this courage, kind of like fascinates me. Tell me more about this or something, So I was like, women should know that too. Like, it's not some sort of black stain of like, oh God, we got to talk about this. And like, it's going to be awkward and they're not going to know what to say. Like, had a lot of them approach me about it in a way that was way different than I thought. And they were kind of like, damn, tell me more about that. So that was another side thing that I didn't expect. But it's not bleak, it's not an awkward conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to wrap up because we can talk about this all day long.
Really, that's why I was like, you got to ask me because otherwise I'll just go and I got all kinds of things to say.
I think that this is going to open up a lot of dialogue and really cause a lot of women to rethink some decisions in their life. And I definitely want any woman, even if it's anonymous and you don't want your name mentioned, if you have any questions at all, comments, questions, please reach out to us. I'm happy to do a follow-up because I know you're working on a program basically for women that may need support in this situation. So what we'll do is we'll schedule a follow-up session and answer any questions that people send in, and then also talk about your new program. So do you have any final comments before?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking of the theme of this show is about abundance. And like, it does really feel like abundance when you can give yourself the things that you want in creative ways. And like, she, you know, has this abundance hack. And I mean, I totally think of it as a hack, you know, to be able to figure out your own creative way around something and feel so good about that creativity. I mean, and it does just feel you're like, gosh, and this is how things feel abundant and from the inside, because you know, like, hey, nothing is going to really get in my way. I've got all these creative things. And that's what I would like to, you know, if there's people sending in questions, like, I don't know everybody's independent situation, but if it's like financially, I've got to figure this out. And I'm like, all right, we will do it. Like, we will creatively come up with something to where it doesn't look so scary. Cause I've got lots of experience in the creative hacks, you know? So.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. I loved every moment of this because I think that it's something that people are afraid to talk about. People are even afraid to admit to themselves that, like, this may be something I want to do, you know, because of different fears, different blocks, different limiting beliefs. So I'm super grateful for you being on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. All right, guys. Until next time, love and light. Thank you for listening to the Abundance Hack Podcast. Don't forget to leave comments and questions. Remember, every time you subscribe or leave a 5-star rating, I do my happy dance.